Everyone else met each other before, so can you just briefly introduce yourself? You're Deputy Head of HR at...
I'm Elizabeth Scott, I'm Deputy Head of HR at Schroders. I've been in London for 7 months. Before that, I was Country Head of the Hong Kong business. I worked for 16 years in Asia.
Okay. Veronica is HR at the Government Actuaries Department.
Mike Weston, I feel slightly unusual here in that I'm not HR at all. I'm Head of Investments at the Daily Mail Pension Fund.
Great.
I'm not HR either.
I'm not argument friends.
I'm generally I'm in the insurance team at F&C.
Okay, lovely. So, one thing, I was in the middle of introducing Olaf, saying that you've all seen his biography, so I won't go into a detailed introduction. The only thing I will say that wasn't in the biography is that although Olaf is an actuary, and you wouldn't necessarily expect an actuary to have a sense of humour, Olaf at one stage was a stand-up comic as part of his career progression, but he has assured me that today he will be taking the subject very seriously.
That's the comedy. Seriously.
Don't know. Olaf, over to you, and then...
Thank you very much, and welcome everybody this morning. And I have to pick up on the comedy, and I can assure you I was really bad, otherwise I wouldn't be here. I would still be in bed and thinking when I get up about new jokes, so that was history. But when I was asked to come here and talk about compensation after the crisis, I was actually quite puzzled. Why was Geraldine asking me? At first I thought, well, I'm German, not working in Germany. I'm an actuary, not working as an actuary. And I'm not in HR, so why am I talking about the HR subject? But actually I thought it might be something completely different, because I came to this country some 15 years ago. And at that time, I would say mainly because of compensation and career opportunities. So maybe that will help to provide an outside opinion to the subject. What I would like to achieve, I would like to bounce a few ideas and initiate a discussion. So I need your help, everyone here. It's not just me talking all the time. I would like you to participate after I have given a few ideas. And the way I would like to do this is, if we talk about the impact to the crisis to compensation, just structure it easy by having some background that's relevant. What does it mean today, what we see already, and what are the likely long-term impact to compensation structures going forward. So that's what I roughly try to address. And again, it is kicking off the discussion, hopefully. Yeah, you all have some material with the bullet points, and I would like, maybe you want to look at these, start with the background. Now you would think of crisis. We have seen many crises. In the 90s, most notable we have seen the Mexican crisis in 94, we have seen the Asian crisis in 97, and the Russian crisis in 98. Now, how does this compare to the financial crisis? Some would argue we are in the middle of it or still in it. How does it compare? For a start, maybe what is with all these crises in common? The ones I've mentioned, they all have in common it's related to some extent to difficulties in repaying debt. Directly or indirectly, that's one of the main reasons. And I'll come back to it because it is important and it has relevance for compensation structures. But what is different this time, or is it all the same? There are things that are different, and the obvious one, or maybe it's not so obvious, normally crises are named by the country of origin. Well, not this time. It's a financial crisis, it's a subprime crisis, a liquidity, a banking, and then a financial global crisis. But it started in the US, and that's the obvious difference. But the other difference is it is in the developed world rather than in the emerging world. And it has started more in the private sector rather than in the government sector. So there are some differences, but they all have one source. It has to do with debt, not being able to pay debt. Looking at the financial crisis over the last few years, Now, I don't want to go into how it started and all the knock-on effects, but maybe just if you look at what happened with the subprime market when it crashed and the link between interest rates rising and house prices falling, how that had a knock-on effect outside of the US. That came to a complete surprise to Europe, for example. It was not expected, and I put down a few dates which I thought were very significant. August in 2007, for example, when the European Central Bank first tried to keep up liquidity by injecting 95 billion. That was one of many that followed. On Northern Rock, you might be very familiar with, where we even had a banking run, but in a few days 2 billion withdrawal is something quite extraordinary. And then of course Lehman, and I can relate to it because I actually was working at Lehman when it happened. Maybe that's a talk on itself for a different occasion. And there are also some funny stories about this as well. But you might think of whose fault was it actually? Why did it happen? And there were many parties involved, and I think not all of them get the same kind of blame. To me, it is surprisingly, but look at this first, the borrowers, the subprime borrowers who were not able to pay back their debt or to refinance. How much are they responsible for their action? Then we have the banks, probably most blame, bundle those bad mortgages and just throw them on. There was enough talk about the banks, but also how about the rating agencies who just acknowledge these structures as being low risk or safe investments, and then investors who didn't know what they were actually buying, didn't understand the risk embedded. Now we all know better. But interesting, if you look at all those parties involved, I would say there's just one significant area that makes them all guilty. It's not just one, they are all guilty. And that is, they all want to make more money. It's the borrowers, it's the banks, the investors, and the rating agencies. So in a way, you can relate this to greed, if you like. So that is one predominant theme, I believe, that has caused the crisis. But maybe also you might think of how about the state, where we had low interest rates for too long, or maybe regulation that was not good enough. But that, again, might be a different subject on its own. Now, that's more or less a bit of the background. How about what is actually the impact